guys, so some of you will know that just last year I finished my English degree and that involved reading a lot of different novels. So today I thought I would do a video sharing with you some of my favorite books that I had to read for uni classes and kind of what focus we had in studying them and things like that. And in a couple of days from now I will be doing my least favorite university reads, so the books that I enjoyed the least. I got the idea to do this video from Karis because she did this after she finished her studies as well, so I'll link her channel down below so you can check her out. So the first couple that I'm going to mention are Shakespeare. Firstly, Othello. You guys might know this because I mentioned it in my top 18 books of 2018 video. Othello is a tragedy. Iago, I don't know how you're meant to pronounce that, but he has kind of a grudge against Othello for whatever reason and wants to mess with him, so he manipulates a whole bunch of people essentially to ruin Othello's life. And what I really enjoyed especially about this play was the dramatic irony, because everyone thinks Iago is a really great, wonderful, nice guy. I found this play really entertaining. The other one that I really enjoyed reading and studying, although I didn't use it for any assignments in the end, was Romeo and Juliet. And this is a classic love story. A lot of you guys might know it. Romeo and Juliet are from the Capulet and Montague families who despise each other, so they fall in love but they're not supposed to be together because their families hate one another, so they get married secretly and it all ends really badly. What I enjoyed reading about this time around, because I had read it before, like in high school, I think this time around I picked up a lot better on the humour that's in this book, because although it is a tragedy, it's also very, very funny in moments, so I really enjoyed that. The next few books that I really enjoyed reading were from my like women's literature class. So the focus of this class was basically about how women have represented themselves in literature over time. So the first one was Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys, and it's kind of based off of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. It's kind of like a prequel, like Jean Rhys imagines what happened before the events of Jane Eyre, and this follows one of the particular characters in Jane Eyre, actually two characters. I'm not going to say who in case you haven't read that book, but I highly recommend, if you have read Jane Eyre, pick this one up, and if you haven't, then read Jane Eyre and then read this one, because it was really interesting. It just makes you think about what are the assumptions we make when we read something like Jane Eyre about different characters without knowing their backstory, and then how does your perception of different people change when you realize what their backstory could have been. So yeah, and this one is mostly set in Jamaica, I think, and I really enjoyed that as a setting, but overall it was a fantastic book. Another one that I enjoyed from that class was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This one is kind of a dystopian novel that was written in the 80s. It's set in a world where essentially it's gone into a hardcore patriarchy, so women have been slotted into three particular roles. They can either be like housemaids kind of thing, or they can be wives, or they can be child bearers, so the women that are able to have children, because a lot of women in this dystopian world can't have children and it's a big problem, so that's kind of why all this craziness has started to happen. The final one from that class that I really enjoyed, and this was a book that I had always wanted to read ever since I had heard of it, and that is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. So this one is from the 1950s. It's about a woman who has an internship to a fashion magazine, but her life kind of starts falling apart. She's dealing, I think, with depression and stuff like that, and she's really struggling, and she ends up institutionalized and stuff. And it is loosely based on Sylvia Plath's own life, so her own struggles with mental health. Next were some books that I read for a young adult fiction class, and this was probably my favorite class out of any of the classes that I took. It was awesome. I was so happy that it was offered as a class. It was something that was quite new for the university, and yeah, it was just focusing on the way that young adult literature is different to adult literature and the different controversies that surround it, what appeals to young people, that kind of thing. So it was really interesting. The first one is one that I had read many times before. It's a classic. I actually studied it in high school as well, but I'd read it before that. And that was The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. So this one follows a boy who's kicked out of school, and then he spends a couple of days roaming around New York City by himself, and he's dealing with depression and mental health issues as well. Next was a book that I'd actually never read before. It was new to me and I was really stoked to find this one. There's a sequel that I haven't read yet, but I do own it, so I should get onto that. But it is Dream Hunter by Elizabeth Knox. So this one is a YA fantasy novel. It's set in a world similar to our own. Elizabeth Knox, by the way, is a New Zealand author, which is awesome. And in this world, not everyone can dream, so there are certain people that can enter kind of like a different dimension and go into a dream world, and they can collect dreams and bring them back and then project them in like kind of a theatre for other people. So there's this girl whose father is a dream hunter, so when she gets to the age where you can test and see if you're a dream hunter as well, she really wants to be one. But then there happens to be all this other conspiracy kind of stuff going on in the background, so it was really interesting. The assignment that I did around it was based on looking at like different recommendations, so like what people say about the book and how that can help you decide whether it's appropriate for young adults and whether you should put it in your library if you're in a school or something like that. The final book that I will mention was one of the happiest moments of my life, finding out that this book was on the course reading list, and that was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Yeah, never thought I would get to read this book for a university class. Of course, I'd read it many times before in my life, so reread it for this class. Really enjoyed discussing it. The assignment I did for this text was around the idea of like good over evil kind of storyline, so yeah, really enjoyed that for that assignment as well. So those are all of my favorite books that I got to read at university. If you're thinking about studying English literature at university, highly recommend it. I had a really good time doing it. Sometimes, as I will get into in the next video, the books were very challenging or not stuff that I really enjoyed, but I feel like I always learned something, and I just think reading books really deepens your understanding of the world, and to do it in that kind of way where you're really studying them and discussing them and talking about different themes and stuff, it really broadens your perspective. So highly recommend that. If you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see you guys with another video in a couple of days. Bye.